Actually, everybody knows Carole. I'm just going to go ahead and let her rip and tell us what's going on in the real estate market, what the future has in store. You're on.
Good, okay,
Go for
good.
it.
How's everybody today? Good?
Great.
Okay, look, I'm going to talk a little bit about the economy. We're going to close down 210. We're going to talk about 211. We're going to talk about this crazy world out there, too hot, too cold, just perfect. Everything was perfect until the whole world blew up. Now it's not quite so perfect. They're just not behaving out there. So at the end of the day, I'm going to talk about the real estate market, and what I'm going to talk about is the oasis in the desert. And here's my whole feeling. I don't know if you knew today, but February NAR sales came out. Of course, they were dismal. You know that. We're down 9.6% from February. It was supposed to be 4%. We're under 5 million again. Inventory 8.6 months. We were at 152,000 in the median price of a home, which doesn't mean diddly to us because you can't buy a lean-to here for 152,000. But at the end of the day, it was all over, and the West was down 8%. Well, at the end of the day, I hate all those statistics. There's no national market, you know that. There's absolutely no California market. You know, we're northern, southern California. We don't even like each other. You understand that. We get into various counties. There's sub-markets under that. So at the end of the day, here's what I say. Yeah, real estate. Yeah, the housing market. Kay Schiller says out of the 20 metropolitan areas they look at, 18 are still distressed. We're still going down. I don't give a rat's ass about that because at the end of the day, we live in a place called San Francisco in the San Francisco Bay Area. And how do I say it's the oasis in the desert? Because maybe the whole housing market in a lot of places is still distressed, I believe that. But you know, in a desert, there's always an oasis. Out there, there's a palm tree and there's a piece of water that you got to get to survive. It's that one beautiful spot, and that happens to be the San Francisco Bay Area. And I think I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, we are basically the gateway to the Pacific Rim, which is where the emerging markets are. You know that. We are an international city. You say San Francisco, they understand that in Beijing. You say Salt Lake City, Utah, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. We basically understand we have great diversity of culture here. We have Silicon Valley, which is where we are creators of things. We are not duplicators. People strive to live here. We basically know that we also have great state universities, Stanford and Cal. You're 5 miles or 5 hours from almost the beach, the desert, whatever that you want to be. And basically, at the end of the day, Silicon Valley is not only alive and well, but I guarantee you within the next 18 months, you're going to have 300 billionaires and millionaires in Silicon Valley. And I'm going to talk about that, and that's going to flood your market, especially at the high end. So let me go back. 2010, thank God we got through it. That's all I can say about it. It was up and down. It was all over the map. You know that. If you look at the stock market, we were basically way down at one time. We ended the year finally at 11,000. It was the small stocks that did well last year, obviously. We kept interest rates low. Why? Because Mr. Bernanke brought us down to zero. He has flooded the world with dollars. Good for him. He's got that pedal on the metal, and basically he is out there just using those Xerox machines down at that Treasury Department night and day, just flooding that world out there. Dollars going to hell, but hey, what difference does it make? Interest rates were low, so he kept everything down, bought $1.5 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities, and basically you know what happened. He brought interest rates down. You go back to November, December, you had interest rates at 3.75%, lowest they've been in 50 years. Of course, every buyer was waiting for them to go down some more, so they all missed it. But we did 1.1 trillion in mortgage-backed, basically, financing last year. That's down from 4 billion, however, but it was still a good year. 80% of that, though, was refi, and only 20% was basically residential resales. So at the end of the day, we had basically a lot of refis last year. Now what happened? Obviously it was good and bad. The good was everybody got low interest rates. The bad was they've gotten bottle fed now for that. And all these buyers are out there buying loans against interest rates. And when you tell them it's 4 or 5% now, they all say, oh, no, I want my 3.75%. Because some idiot on TV when they're watching the news or at 11 o'clock at night gets on with an 800 number, says, call this number, we'll give you a 30-year loan for 3.75%. Well, Warren Buffett can get that loan, but nobody else in the United States of America can get it, so it's sort of basically not there. I think we've moved into the 4s, and I think we're going to move into the 5s, and I think by year end it's going to be 5.5, and I think then we're moving into the 6s. There is inflation out there. If you ask me what is the issue with that, Mr. Bernanke talks about core inflation. Well, what does he take out? The 2 big bubbles we have this year, which is food and energy. Last year it was gold and silver, but this year, let's look at food. It's going up all over. Look at the world. We don't spend 100% of what we make on food, so we don't feel it as much. But if you look at coffee and soybeans and rice and wheat and corn, which are the staples of the world, they're up 40, 50, 60%. Look at oil where it is and where it's probably going to stay. That does affect it. So when he says, oh, inflation is not a big deal, it's still 1%, bull. I think inflation is 2% or 2.5%, and I think that that means that basically it's not a question of if, it's a question of already here. Here's the the big deal of what Mr. Bernanke has to do. You know he's doing that second quantitative easing. So the first half of the year, look, we're pretty stable compared to the rest of the world. I mean, when you look at the Middle East and you look at Japan and everybody else, our economy doesn't look that bad. We have positive GDP growth. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. They have projected 3.5%. I think because of oil and what's going to happen there, because of Japan, you're probably going to see that GDP get shaved to 0.5% to 1%. It's just going to be because we're dependent upon the world. We're part of a basically links in a chain. So our GDP is going to go down. We had nothing to do with that. But here's the deal for us. Mr. Bernanke in July has to stop that quantitative easing, the second one he's done. He has to decide if he wants to do that. He's out there now buying $600 billion worth of 10-year T-bills. Now let's go back and talk about that. Basically, in October, the 10-year T-bill was at 2.6%. It's now at 3.3. I think it's going to be at 4% by the end of the year. It's going down because of what happened in the world, but believe me, we have inflation, the stuff is ticking up, and it's out there. Now, he's going to have to look at what the world is doing and decide whether we are basically strong enough in our recovery here that he can take that metal off the pedal and basically let the private markets get back in and work. They're not working yet. Whether he does that or not depends upon whether he's going to do a third quantitative easing. If he starts with that, the whole world is not going to like that because that affects the dollar. It means we're flooding the world with dollars. People here don't like it. We're devaluing our currency. But he's going to have to decide that. So let's decide that he's not going to do that. He's going to stop all of the stimulus he's been doing. He's going to let the private markets come back in. Then what does he have to do? He has to balance the economy and make sure we don't go into a recession again. He has to watch inflation and make sure it doesn't whirl its ugly head. He has to watch that bond market. He has to start to raise interest rates and make sure everything works together just perfectly. So that's what he has to do. So the second half of the year is going to be a little bit volatile. Now, at the end of the day, I think the darling's going to be the stock market. I think the stock market has done extremely well in spite of everything. I mean, look where it is. We're above 12,000 today again. Yeah, we went down 1%, 1.5%. Look, first of all, we were going to have a 10% correction anyway, because if you look at last year, we were up 10%, 11% on the Dow, 17% on NASDAQ. Go back 18 months, you got back 60% of everything that you lost. Therefore, we were due for a correction. What happened with the world, and we only went down 1%, 1.5%, means that we're holding on the stock market. Now, it's very good today for a couple of reasons. One, I know you heard AT&T now went out and is going to buy T-Mobile. Of course, that's going to be a big fight because everybody's going to hate it, especially Sprint. And there's a $3 billion, in case they don't make it, fee that basically AT&T will pay T-Mobile. Tiffany's came out, they still had good, strong earnings, so there's been good things out there that have made the stock market stay. We're above 12,000. I think this is a buying opportunity. I really do, this correction we're having. I think the big stocks this year are going to carry the day, and here's why. When you look at the economy in the United States economy, it depends what station you're on in the morning, what economy you get, because we have 3 different economies going. The first thing is the big businesses in America. They're doing fine. So if you're Boeing, if you're 3M, if you're Walmart, if you're ExxonMobil, if you're Pfizer, if you're Merck, if you're Procter & Gamble, if you're basically General Electric, think about it. You get 46% of all your profits abroad. You're doing just fine. You're like a Ferrari going down that freeway. You've trimmed down. You sent everybody home. You have more cash on your books than God. The government is loaning you money at 1%, which means it's a free gift. And oh my God, you're out there buying everybody. Look at AT&T buying T-Mobile, right? You know Mr. Berkshire Hathaway, Mr. Buffett just bought a huge company, just bought a railroad company last year. Everybody's buying everybody. Why? They don't care if they pay a premium. They're going to buy market share at 1%. It's a free gift. It's like getting it for nothing. So if you're a big business, you're doing fine. Small business, that's where we're stuck. They're the ones that hire everybody. That's why we have an employment problem. They can't get a loan. They don't want a loan. They're out there with basically all these taxes, regulations. They hire somebody. It costs them $80,000 to get that person $44,000, and they just don't want to do it. So they're holding back. They're kind of like the Ford going down the freeway. Then you have the American consumer. Why do we have to talk about them? Because they're 70% of the economy out there. Now, you all know about 5 years ago, you all had a black belt in shopping. You know that. We bought everything and anything. If I went into any of your closets, whether you're a man or a woman, first of all, if you're a woman, you got every shoe made to man. You know that. You got sandals and blings, and you got high heels and low heels and flats, and you got boots, and you got this, that, and whatever. Now, the new thing is 2 things. If you have a kid, they want the twinkle, those sneakers now that basically light when you run around. If you're a woman, you want that sneaker that now they have convinced you that basically if you wear it, you tilt to the left and you run, you're going to lose 95 pounds if you just run around the world all day. Now, you know that's a bunch of you-know-what. That's the biggest piece of crap they ever sold anybody because now everybody's tilting, but you're not going anywhere. You're just running around the world now tilting left or right. So at the end of the day, then you got all the purses that match the shoes, because God forbid you shouldn't be color coordinated, because your mother told you you should do that, God forbid. And all you guys bought all the toys. Well, what kind of a consumer do you have now? It's a different consumer. They're out there value shopping. Oh my God, they think about it before they buy it. They're saving money, 5.6%. They're trying to get out of debt. Oh, and at the end of the day, everybody in America wants a promotion. Do you notice that? We don't call it a discount. We don't call it on sale, but everybody wants a promotion because basically we've trained them to do that. Cars, everybody has a discount, zero financing. You go into Joseph A. Banks, if you're a man, you buy one suit, you get 3 free. You go into Lucky's, you go into Safeway on Friday. Did you notice all the yellow stickers? It used to be $6.95, but on Friday it's $5.95. Buy 2, you get 1 free. Isn't that the new world now? So I have a solution to the foreclosure problem. You know, we have so many of those in short sales. There's another 2 million coming. I think the way you solve it, because the government can't, they've been very bad at it, the banks aren't doing anything about it. So if you buy a house this year, you get 1 free. I think that's perfect, that solves that problem. So you have 3 economies going just in the United States of America. Then let's look at the global world, because we are impacted by that. I just said it's going to impact our GDP probably 0.5 to 1%. Well, let me start a little bit first with the European Common Union. 10 years ago, 27 countries got together, and basically 16 of them used the European Common Union, the euro. Now that's great because they thought they could buy in bulk, they would be stronger, and obviously the euro took off. It was at one time this year 150 against the dollar. But what happened in Europe? Well, you have some strong countries there like France and Germany, and then you have what they call the pigs, which is Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Well, they blew their wad. They went to Charlie Sheen's party, and they were all smoking coke and Kool-Aid and doing cocaine, and they're in big debt. Now, here's the problem. The debts are all from the French, German, and American banks. So we have to help them because they can't get any money to pay back the banks on the private markets, and if we don't pay them back, our banks are going under. So screaming and yelling, France and Germany and the International Monetary Fund have had to loan them money. Is it enough? No, it's not. Are they safe and secure? No, they aren't. Oh, gee, Greece didn't need any money. Oh, yes, it did. Ireland was perfect. Remember, they said that. We don't need any money. Oh, gee, Ireland needs money. Oh, gee, Spain and Portugal, they've all been downgraded. We don't need anything. We're just fine. So that leaves what? Italy. Now, I can talk about Italy because I'm Italian, and you know Mr. Berlusconi is there, the Italian premier. 72 years old, a billionaire. You do know that he's gotten basically through everything. He's been accused of thievery, of fraud, runs around with women, has on his 3rd or 4th wife. Mr. Berlusconi has survived everything. He has one problem now. His problem now is, and it's amazing to me, this is a country that has a debt level like none. Because you know the Italians, they're great with food, they're wonderful people, they have beautiful, beautiful cities. They cannot add 2 and 2 is 4. If you've ever been there, they drive where they want. You know, they're absolutely out of control over there, you know that. At the end of the day, they have tremendous debt there. That is not what makes the paper there. What makes the paper there is not the debt, not the fact that they've invested all their money in Libya. Did you know they're the biggest investor because Libya is their neighbor, and it's all going to, well, it's getting blown up, but okay, we don't want to talk about that. In the paper, we have to talk about Mr. Berlusconi and the 17-year-old that he basically had at his house. Now, he never had any sex with her, all right? But he did do 2 things. He gave her $300,000 in money worth of gifts, and he tried to change the date on her birth certificate so she wouldn't be 17 years old, because if you have sex with somebody under 18, that's considered a crime. So Mr. Berlusconi is now on trial saying that, oh, this is not true, because he just would never do that. At the same time, the big picture in the paper in Italy last week was a bunch of women carrying signs protesting against Mr. Berlusconi. Now, I love this, because let me tell you, in this picture, what you see there are not 17-year-old models. What you see there are 50-year-old women, right? Premarin, Zoloft women, taking medication, basically going through the change of life. Now, let me tell you one thing I know. You get a bunch of Premarin, Zoloft, women going through the change of life, hot and cold on any given day, unhappy, crying, miserable, mad, and you are going down, Mr. Berlusconi. So he survived everything, and he'll survive Libya. But you will never survive a group of pregnant, basically menopausal women if you have ever been through that, and I have, and I want to tell you, he is going down. That's the end of Italy. I don't care whether they need money or not. Berlusconi's going home. All right. So that's Italy. Basically, that's going to happen. They're going to be up and down. Why do we care? They're our 2nd biggest trading partner. IMF is giving them half of the loan that they're getting, and we are 30% of the IMF. We have no money, but we're giving it anyway. So that's there. Europe basically calm, but basically flexible. You're going to see it up and down. It's not solved. The euros come back. It was as low as 110. It came back to about 140, but it's still pretty iffy there. Now, let me talk a little bit about China too. China, and everybody says, well, they own the world. Yeah, well, they got problems there. When they asked the premier there, what's your problem? He says, look, I got 2 billion people that go to bed every night, they get up. I gotta make sure they have food and they can eat and they have a job. Now, you know that they've cut down the internet there. They've basically made the banks stop loaning money. If you own property there, they've been really strict about what you can put down, the kind of people that you can buy and how much you can buy. And they're having some little issues there. They have a middle class that wants everything. They are an exporting nation. They need to build an interior economy to keep their people fed. So at the end of the day, they're moving too fast. So they're like not a super Ferrari going down that freeway. They have inflation 7%. Their food costs have gone up enormously. So at the end of the day, they're too much on fire trying to slow down the place. Now at the end of the day, do they own our debt? Of course they do. They already own it. When people say, well, they're going to buy America, look, they already own America. So here's the thing you have to understand about that. Let's talk about China. Are they going to be a world power? Of course, they're already a world power. They're at the table. They're at the UN. They were involved with Libya. They think differently than we do. Their democracy's differently. Their culture is a little bit different. At the end of the day, is that a bad or good thing? Look, at the end of the day, here's the difference. When you're my age and you're really old, you look at the engine of the world and you say, fine, America, $14 trillion, China is half of that. But they have 2 billion people. We're a country of 400 million people. Of course they're going to come along. At the end of the day, are we tired of being the engine? Well, at my age, you get tired of pulling the weight of the world. I want to go back in the caboose. I don't mind. I'll have a cocktail. I'll sit there. I'll get the scenic route. You still get to the same place at the same time. The other thing is, look at it this way. If China owns America, they'll never blow us up. This is a good thing. So, it's in their best interest to get the bucks back that we have basically borrowed from them, that basically we have to pay back. Now, let's talk a little bit about the deficit. Is that a problem? Yes, it is. Is Washington dealing with it? No, it's not. At the end of the day, let me try to put it in perspective. We now have a deficit of $14 trillion, and we are a $14 trillion economy. So that means that our debt is 100% of our gross domestic product. Now see, when you get into the hundreds, it starts to get very iffy and bad. I think we're 3 years from the edge. That's what I think. Now, will Washington deal with it? If they don't, they're going to be forced to do it, because here's what's going to happen. Right now, we pay $500 billion a year on interest and on our debt. That number is going to multiply, and by 2050, 2030, it's going to be $1 trillion, and that's going to be a problem. At the end of the day, here's the deal. You know and I know that they've come up with all this stuff. They're doing the squishy stuff. At the end of the day, you got to hit Medicare, Medi-Cal, and Social Security. That's it. You got to do it. Because at the end of the day, here's what you have to say to young people. You don't want to hit it? Great. Then it won't be there when you get to be 65. That's going to be the end of the rainbow. It's not going to be there. So you want Medicare? You want Social Security? Great. Then we have to make some adjustments, because otherwise, guess what? When you're 65, it won't matter, because it won't be here. But they're not doing that, so they're squishy.